You open your eyes, not to an alarm or to the blue glow of a digital screen, but to darkness laced with embers. There's no concept of time here, no schedule waiting to be obeyed. The air is heavy with the scent of smoke and hide, and somewhere nearby, a low breath moves through the reeds. You haven't been awakened by noise or urgency or thought. You've simply risen because the fire has dimmed and the cold is starting to creep in. That fire is more than heat. It is safety, direction, the center of everything. Its rhythm is older than memory, and in the stillness that surrounds you, the flicker of its last breath tells you it needs to be fed. You push back the heavy hide stretched over the willow frame of your shelter. The material creaks faintly in the wind. The walls, made of branches and stitched skins, ripple slightly, breathing with you. This is not a tent. This is not a structure built for adventure or leisure. It is home, formed by hands that know what to bend, what to weave, what will stand against wind and time. Outside, the horizon is still dark, the sky a deep shade of ink fading into bruise. There are no stars now, only the hush before light. You rise not because you must, but because your body moves in harmony with this land. You rise because the world is turning again. There are no roads here, no streetlights to guide your steps, just footprints pressed into the earth from the day before, and the soft impression of the camp stretching into the distance. Around you, others begin to stir. A cough, a rustle of hide, the faint snap of twigs underfoot. You are not alone. You've never been alone. Your people sleep close, wrapped in the same breath, warmed by the same embers, dreaming in the same rhythm. The ground beneath your feet is cold, is not cruel. It knows you. It has held your ancestors and will hold those who come after you. The soil remembers. You can feel it when your heel presses into it, when your fingers scoop ash away from the fire's heart, when you reach for a dry branch and feel it give just enough to snap with promise. You know which trees burn best. You know which bark resists the damp. You don't guess. You remember. To be awake in this world is not to rush. It is to listen. To the distant call of cranes in the marsh, to the whisper of wind across reeds, to the hush that precedes the songs of insects. Every sound matters. Every movement has a meaning. You are not surrounded by wilderness. You are inside of it like a thread inside a tapestry. The camp is small, 20, maybe 30 people, no more. Too many mouths make the land grow silent. Too few hands and the fire fades. You know them all, not just their names. Names don't last long out here, but the shape of their steps, the cadence of their laughter, the way each one breathes when they sleep. This intimacy is not sentimental. It is essential. You know who will rise first, who will check the traps, who hums while they work. These are the facts that keep you alive. There is no word for history here, no line drawn between now and before. The past is not a story told in books. It is held in gesture, in song, in scars. When you look at your hands, you see a rhythm older than your own life. You see the cuts that taught you which flint was brittle and which was strong. You see the soot that never really washes off. You see your mother's fingers in your grip. You see fire. You step past the low threshold of your shelter. The morning air bites, but does not wound. It carries the breath of nearby water, still hidden by dark, but pulsing with life. Somewhere behind you, a child stirs and whimpers, met instantly by the warmth of a nearby hand. No one cries alone. No one waits for comfort. The group moves like a tide, soft, sure, surrounding. In the center of the camp, the hearth glows. A few coals still burn, hidden under layers of ash left there deliberately. Fire is not something you make, it's something you keep. It takes days to coax flame from friction, but with care, a single ember can survive the night, tucked beneath charcoal like a sleeping heart. You kneel and blow gently. Smoke curls upward. A single orange breath returns. Fire is reborn. This place, this moment, is older than temples, older than kings, older than calendars. You do not measure time here, you feel it. In the wind's shift, in the angle of shadow, in the taste of roots that change with season. The sun has not yet risen, but you know it will. It always does. Not because someone told you, but because the world is rhythm. And you are its echo. You are not a wanderer. You are not lost. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. The lake is nearby. You can smell it. Wet earth, fish skin, soft rot. The reeds will hum later when the wind picks up. This place does not have a name. It has meaning. It is where your people gathered last season. It is where the birds nested. It is where you dried meat. It is where the stars once fell in silence and you watched with open mouths. That is enough. A woman steps past you barefoot, holding a bundle of sticks tied with sinew. She does not look at you but nods once. Her hair is matted, her hands blackened with soot. She hums a melody you don't recognize, though it feels like something you've always known. That is how knowledge moves here, not in declarations, but in fragments, in motion, in song. You begin to gather, not because it is time, but because your muscles say so. The body remembers what the mind cannot name. You check the meat hanging in the smoke. You turn a hide to catch the sun. You place a fresh branch on the fire, angled just so. The flames catch with a whisper. No one gives orders. There are no ranks, no bosses, no sermons. There is only what must be done in the understanding that someone will do it, not for reward, not for pride, but because you are here and it matters that you remain. The fire must live. A bird calls in the distance, sharp, brief, insistent. Others are waking, not just your kin, but the land itself. The world exhales. The sky begins to lighten, not with speed, but with grace. Everything here moves slowly, not out of laziness, but because there is no rush. What would you rush toward? The sun will climb, the roots will grow, the river will move, even if no one watches it. You sit near the fire and place a hand on the earth. It is cool, damp, honest. The smoke rises and curls around your face, clinging to your skin like memory. You do not turn away. You breathe it in. This is the beginning of another day, in a world without beginnings, and still the embers glow. The morning light begins its quiet ascent, slipping across the low hills and shimmering on the damp grass. There are no walls to catch it, no windows to frame it. It slides through branches and glances off hides, warming the backs of those who've already stirred. The camp doesn't rise with the fanfare of alarm clocks or the hiss of kettles. It breathes into life, slowly, collectively, like lungs waking from a long exhale. And as the fire stretches toward the new day, so too do the people. You step outside, and there is no threshold to mark your exit, no doorway, no floor plan, no roof above your head, just sky. You don't live in a house, you live in a pattern. The dome of your shelter curves low to the ground, built from willow branches bent by hands that have done this 1,000 times, covered in bark, hide, and memory. It flexes with the wind, not against it. The structure isn't meant to last forever. It's meant to move, to be rebuilt, to return to the earth as quietly as it rose from it. These shelters don't impose, they suggest. They blend into the landscape like nests, like burrows, like the bones of a fallen animal. Each one is shaped by what the land offers: saplings from the woods, reeds from the river, hides from the hunt. You build with what you have, not because you are limited, but because you are fluent. You speak the language of material. You know what bends and what snaps, what breathes and what rots. The result is not permanence, it's presence. Nearby, a man adjusts the lashings of his shelter. The sinew creaks under pressure. He isn't repairing a house, he's maintaining a rhythm. You don't own this place, you inhabit it, and that difference changes everything. There are no cave walls around you, not because caves didn't exist, but because they were rare, often wet, and used only when needed: shelter from storm, resting place during migration, perhaps even sanctuary for something sacred. But they were never home. The cartoon image of a caveman crouching beneath dripping stalactites, grunting by torchlight, was never the default. It was an exception, not the rule. Real life happens here, in the open, under the sky. The hearth in the center is your compass. Everything radiates from it: sleeping mats, food stores, tool piles, woven baskets lined with dry grass. It isn't designed, it's remembered. This layout isn't new, it's inherited, passed down not in blueprints, but in gestures. The fire goes in the middle, the ash goes to the edge, the opening faces away from the wind. You don't learn this in a lesson. You learn it by watching someone do it as you hold the other end of the branch. Even now, as the light grows and voices begin to rise, there is no shouting, no command. Someone feeds the fire. Someone returns with water. Someone unties a net and checks for the night's catch. No one is told. Everyone remembers. And in that memory is structure. Not rigid, not fixed, but alive. This is architecture without ego. There are no monuments, no walls to separate you from others, no locks, nothing to protect, because everything that matters is shared. Your shelter is not a statement of status. It is a reply to the land, a conversation with the wind, the rain, the season. When it falls apart, you build another. When you move, you leave no scar. In colder places, the materials shift. Far to the north, where trees are rare and snow lies thick, people build with bone. At the edge of a frozen plain, someone once stacked mammoth tusks into a circle, sealing them with turf and clay. A fire burned at the center. A tool sat near the entrance. The bones weren't trophies. They were beams, ribs of a house carved by necessity and ingenuity, not because the builders lacked imagination, but because they had too much of it to waste. Further still, in places where even bones were scarce, people dug. Semi-subterranean shelters scooped from the lowest soil, lined with stones, covered with hides. These homes disappeared with time, melted back into the land, but the pattern remains. Post holes, fire pits, scatterings of flint chips, all telling a story not of poverty, but of adaptation. Design by experience, shelter not as symbol, but as function. You begin to gather the dried roots from last season, stored carefully in a sunken pit lined with leaves. The ground is soft here. It remembers the hands that dug it. The pit has no label, no sign, but everyone knows where it is. That knowledge is not written, it is lived. Every child watches, every elder adjusts. Learning is spatial, communal. You build the same shelter every year, not because you can't imagine another, but because this one works. Someone laughs across the camp. A dog barks, chasing an insect in the grass. Two children weave strips of bark around a bent branch, mimicking what they've seen done 1,000 times. Their fingers fumble, then adjust. No one corrects them. The structure will hold, or it won't. Either way, they will learn. The walls you build as a child are not walls at all. They're skills. They're stories. They're shelter for memory. The day unfolds. The smoke drifts upward. The wind presses at the edges of your dome, but does not enter. The fire crackles. The camp breathes. Everything is temporary. Everything is enough. You look to the horizon and see the way the grass bends. You feel the chill rising from the water. You know this place will not be yours for long. The season will shift. The fish will move. The wind will turn. And when it does, you will not cling to the walls. You will walk. You will build again. And the land will welcome you, not as a conqueror, not as an owner, but as someone who remembers how to listen. The sun has fully crested now, casting long golden shadows across the camp. The earth, still damp with morning breath, hums beneath your feet. There is no horn that signals the start of the day, no orders barked, no schedules nailed to trees. But movement begins all the same, not with urgency, but with intention. The first footsteps are soft, almost respectful, pressing into the dew-covered grass like a ritual, not a rush. The foragers rise first, those whose hands know the language of leaves. Men and women alike collect their baskets, woven with memory more than fiber, and move quietly into the land. No one asks where they are going. Everyone already knows. They move toward the places where the ground curves just right, where last season the berries ripened early, where a certain root sends up thin shoots like green whispers promising food below. You follow the older ones, not because they tell you to, but because your feet naturally fall into their rhythm. They do not look like scientists, but they are. They can smell the difference between edible and toxic. They recognize the slight sheen that means a plant has absorbed too much sunlight, the tiny curl at a leaf's edge that means it's too late to harvest. They do not speak in chemical compounds, but they understand reaction. They know which tuber needs to be roasted twice to be safe, which leaf will calm a stomach, which bark will slow blood. They touch the world the way an artist touches clay, with reverence and practice. And like artists, they've learned that no two pieces are ever the same. A root today might be bitter when it wasn't last year. A patch of berries sweet now, dry the next moon. They don't keep journals. They don't need to. Their bodies are the archive. Their hands remember. As the foragers vanish into the forest, the hunters gather by the fire, crouching low, fingers tracing the dirt, eyes scanning the horizon. There are no guns here, no drones or optics. Just eyes honed by thousands of dawns, legs that know how to run without sound, lungs that pace themselves to the rhythm of flight. The hunt is not chaos. It is calculus. It is observation translated into motion. One hunter squats near the edge of a trail, examining the soft ground. A hoof print, light but recent, not deep enough for heavy rain to have softened it, which means the animal passed in the last few hours. Another mark, to the left, a broken reed, not snapped by wind, but bent from pressure. A third clue, almost invisible, the faint smell of musk on the breeze, carried from the north. The prey is close. There is no shouting, no dramatic speeches. The signal is a nod, a glance, a shift in breath. The group splits, two flank wide to the east, one doubles back to intercept. You move with the patience of predators who understand that rushing is foolish. The wind is checked constantly, the sun's angle noted, every sound measured. The weapons are simple to the eye but refined through generations. Spears of wood tipped with stone blades so sharp they split flesh like glass. Some are fitted with microliths, tiny barbs embedded along the shaft to tear deeper. One of the older men carries an atlatl, a carved throwing stick that acts as an extension of his arm. With it, he can launch a spear with twice the force and distance. It is not primitive, it is physics rendered in wood. But the goal is not always the kill. Often the animal escapes. Often the track leads to nothing. That too is part of the rhythm. The hunt is not the center of daily life. It is its high risk, high reward crescendo. Most nourishment comes from plants, from gathering, from the quiet intimacy with the land. But when the hunt succeeds, it is a feast, a celebration not of power, but of precision. You break off from the main group, trailing behind the younger hunters. Your task is to learn by doing. No lectures, no demonstrations, just mimicry, repetition, subtle correction. You place your foot where the elder did. You hold your breath when they do. When they pause to listen, you do not ask why. You feel why. A snap in the distance, the hush of birds. Something changed in the animal, maybe a deer, maybe a boar, is ahead. The lead hunter gestures with two fingers, then points. You crouch, you wait. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. Time here does not drip in numbers. It flows in tension, then movement. A shadow darts. The group bursts forward, not in frenzy, but in choreographed pursuit. Every runner knows their route. Every throw is calculated. The spear flies. You will not know until later if the kill was made. It almost doesn't matter. The act itself is learning. To track is to understand how the world moves. To hunt is to be fluent in its silence. Back in the forest, the foragers return with their own bounty. Roots thick with soil, leaves bundled in hides, berries crushed slightly from the weight of the basket. A child carries a bundle nearly her size, proud and grinning. She knows what she gathered. She could name every stem, every scent. She is not helping. She is participating. There is no classroom here, no chalkboard, no test. But education is everywhere. Every motion observed, every mistake gently corrected. A boy watches his mother split a root, sniff it, discard it. He mimics her movements, not with toys, but with real tools. His hands are clumsy. His knowledge isn't. It's just waiting to catch up to his fingers. This is a world where memory walks, where knowledge is not segmented into disciplines, but worn into muscle and embedded in breath. You do not ask, "What did we do today?" because the answer is too large, too deep, too vital. You moved with the land, you read its signs, you spoke its language without words. And as the sun climbs higher, casting sharper lines on the earth, the camp begins to swell with movement again. Fires are stoked. Meat, if caught, will be dried. Plants sorted, tools repaired. But none of this is noise. None of it is disorder. This is not survival as struggle. It is survival as rhythm. a dance between human and world where both remember each other well. By midday, the camp is alive with the quiet hum of tasks being done not by instruction, but by inheritance. There are no voices raised above others, no orders handed down from someone in charge, no written lists or rules tacked to a tree. Yet everything moves with purpose. The meat, if the hunt succeeded, is laid out carefully to dry near the fire, skin peeled back, muscles stretched flat. Nearby, someone grinds roots against stone, the rhythm steady, almost meditative. A child watches, mimics the motion with smaller hands. There is no classroom, yet learning never stops. Nothing is written here, not because the people are incapable, but because writing hasn't yet become necessary. And yet, everything important is remembered. Knowledge doesn't live on pages. It lives in gesture, in ritual, in repetition. The stories are not kept in scrolls, but in bodies, in muscle memory, in calloused fingertips, in the way someone tilts their head just before slicing a root or tying a knot. A mother sits with her daughter by the hearth, stripping sinew from a leg bone. The girl doesn't ask what it's for. She watches, wide-eyed, absorbing every movement. The mother says little, but her hands speak fluently. One tug, one twist, one test of strength, and the material is ready. The daughter copies her, awkward at first, then a little more sure. The lesson is not delivered, it is shared. This is how memory moves, not in lectures, but in proximity. You learn because you are close, because the story is being told around you, whether or not you realize it. A father hums as he carves a tool. The melody isn't for entertainment. It marks time, matches breath, and lingers long after the work is done. The child beside him repeats it days later, whittling his own branch. He doesn't know why the tune came back to him, only that it feels right, like a shape that fits the hands. At night, the real archive opens. The fire is no longer just for cooking. It becomes a stage, a sacred circle of memory. The children gather without being called. The elders don't hold books, they hold breath. They wait until the sparks are high and the silence is ready. Then they begin. The story is not linear. It is layered, winding, full of pauses and shadows and mimicry. A tale of the animal who walked backward so the hunters would miss its tracks. A tale of the plant that sang to the roots at night. A tale of the child who followed the moon and found fire. Each story is myth and manual at once. Inside the fantasy is survival. Inside the joke is knowledge. You don't laugh and forget. You laugh and remember. The youngest don't always understand, but they hear. They feel the shifts in tone, the rise in voice, the sudden hush. They learn when to listen, when to echo. The cadence becomes familiar, and familiarity becomes knowing. A whispered story told 50 times becomes as real as the roots beneath your feet. There are gestures, too, ones that replace whole sentences. A flick of the hand toward a certain tree, a tapping of 2 fingers on the belly, a glance to the clouds, and a slow shake of the head. These are not universal signs. They are tribal, intimate, specific, passed down like songs, like rituals, like the shape of a spearhead that curves just right to cut without tearing. Children do not play school. They play survival. They mimic their elders gutting fish, collecting water, shaping traps. A boy lashes reeds together, building a tiny shelter with uneven walls. An elder squats beside him, not correcting, just watching. The boy adjusts, watching his own mistake reveal itself through collapse. The next time, the walls stand straighter. Learning is embodied. It sticks because it is lived. You remember that certain mushrooms only grow near trees struck by lightning, not because someone told you, but because someone pointed to the blackened bark and whispered a name that doesn't translate, and you never forgot it. You remember how to twist fibers for cordage because your fingers learned the rhythm while your mind wandered. Even pain teaches. A girl touches a nettle plant once, and the sting humbles her. Later, her grandmother shows her how to crush its leaves to ease a bite. The lesson isn't isolated. It is part of a web. Plant, touch, burn, cure. Nothing is accidental. Everything connects. There are no degrees, no diplomas. But everyone is an expert in something, and everyone is expected to teach. You don't hoard knowledge, you return it. What you learn, you pass on, not as a task, but as identity. You are not just someone who gathers roots. You are the one who knows which bark sings in winter, and that song lives in you until it's ready to move into someone else. In the corner of the camp, two elders speak softly. One holds a stone tool worn thin from years of use. He turns it over slowly, his thumb following the grooves, as if the blade itself were telling him a story. Perhaps it is. The edge was sharpened by another hand, decades ago. The stone came from a hill a day's walk west. It remembers that walk. It remembers the rhythm of the river, the crunch of frost underfoot. When he finally speaks, it's not about the tool, it's about the journey to find the right rock. The story that unfolds is not just about geography. It's about patience, instinct, mistake, and correction. It is a lesson hidden inside a memory. And so the day carries forward, layered with knowledge invisible to the untrained eye. Every action is loaded with history. Every tool has lineage. Every song a function. You do not ask what is true in this world. You ask what works and who showed you how. To live here is to swim in meaning, to carry a library not in your hands, but in your bones. And when night falls again and the fire once more draws the people near, you listen, not for information, but for continuity. You hear your grandmother's voice in the rhythm, your grandfather's hands in the pauses. You understand without needing to ask that you are part of a story far older than your name, and that, in this place, is more enduring than any alphabet. When the light begins to dim and the long shadows stretch thin across the grass, something changes, not just in the air, but in the people. The camp does not fall silent, nor does it retreat. Instead, it turns inward. The tasks of the day, cutting, drying, sharpening, gathering, begin to slow, and all movements naturally begin to drift toward the center, toward the fire. By the time the last of the sun has disappeared behind the horizon, the fire is already awake, crackling gently, licking at bark and bone. It isn't roaring. It doesn't need to. Its glow is enough to pull every pair of eyes in the camp, to draw bodies close in a widening ring. It is not just heat. It is not just light. The fire is alignment. It's gravity. It holds the people together when the darkness arrives. There is no roof overhead, but this circle becomes a room, not built with walls, but with closeness. It feels sacred, though there is no altar. It feels ancient, though it was kindled just hours ago. You sit with your knees pulled close, hide wrapped over your shoulders, eyes drawn to the flames not out of habit, but hunger for story, for sound, for memory. A flute begins to sing. It's carved from bird bone, worn smooth with time. The notes it produces are not random. They rise and fall with purpose, echoing the rhythm of breath and heart. There is no written music, but the melody has shape. It tells a story without words, winding through the dusk like smoke, soft and haunting. Then someone begins to tap, stone against stone, slow and steady, syncing with the music, grounding it. This is not entertainment, it is re-entry. After a day of chasing animals, identifying plants, weaving cord, and listening to the land, night is when the people return, not just to camp, but to meaning. Everything that was done during the day now floats back into the firelight, reshaped as narrative. A voice begins, low and rhythmic. A tale unfolds, not one of distant kings or heroic battles, but of a grandmother who spoke to a fox, of a river that forgot how to flow, of a time when the stars walked across the sky like people. The children lean closer. Even those who heard the story last night do not move, because it is not the plot that matters. It is the telling, the pauses, the glances, the shared breath, the reminder that you are not alone. The fire flickers against the faces around it, casting shadows that dance like spirits across the ground. These shadows are not frightening. They are familiar. They mimic animals, ancestors, the shapes of gods that have no temples, only smoke to live in. You feel them watching, not from above, but from within. The night does not isolate, it connects. Sometimes the story changes, a new version, a new twist. Not because the teller is unsure, but because memory here is fluid, not fossilized. Stories shift to fit the season, the audience, the mood. A forgotten character might reappear. A plant might become a symbol. A mistake might turn into wisdom. There is no shame in adaptation. It is how knowledge survives. The children are not asked to be quiet. They simply are, not because of discipline, but because of rhythm. The fire commands silence not with force, but with awe. Even the youngest feel it, the gravity of the glow, the pull of the voice, the importance of staying still so that the story can find its shape. And when the music returns, drums now may be made from stretched hide over hollowed wood. It comes not as an interlude, but as a continuation. The beat is not for dancing, though some sway. It is for aligning heartbeats, for entering something beyond the body. Some close their eyes and rock slowly. Some begin to hum. The sound rises, not in volume, but in depth. It feels like something old remembering itself. There is no performance here, no applause. What happens around the fire is not for show. It is for anchoring, for stitching together the pieces of the day with thread invisible to the eye, but felt deeply in the chest. The fire is a loom, and every song, every tale, every gesture is another weave in the fabric of understanding. The elders speak less now. Their voices were the foundation. The younger ones begin to imitate, to experiment with phrasing, with tone. A boy mimics a hunter's stance. A girl tells a joke twisted from an old myth. Laughter erupts, not mocking, but welcoming. This is how inheritance moves, not through declaration, but through absorption. As the night deepens, the air grows colder, but no one drifts far. The fire is not just warmth, it is the memory of every night before this one. It remembers your first steps, your first scar, the first time your hands split bark or your lips shaped a song. And when you finally curl up beside it, eyes half lidded, the smoke seeps into your skin, wrapping around you like a story that never ends. No one here will ask for silence. It comes naturally, as the flames settle lower, glowing more than burning. A hush falls, soft as moss. You hear the sigh of someone drifting to sleep, the quiet rustle of hide, the final crack of wood folding into ash. This is not the end of the day. It is its soul. And as your eyes close, you realize the fire is not in the center of your world. It is your world. It is the first voice you heard, the last shape you'll see, the keeper of what matters. What we lost when we built walls and turned on lights was not just darkness, it was this, the soft, unbroken bond between story and flame, between breath and belonging. What we lost was the center, but here, in this circle, it still glows. The fire's glow fades with the coming dawn, but its warmth lingers in your bones. You stretch as a step out into the cool air and feel the hush before motion. Today might be a hunting day, not because someone decreed it, not because the group is starving, but because the balance calls for it. And when the call comes, it is answered not with chaos, but with clarity. The idea that hunting is crude, that it is the act of savages swinging clubs in blind frenzy, is one of modernity's laziest lies. Out here, hunting is a science, a performance of strategy, patience, and deep ecological literacy. The men and women who hunt are not brutes. They are engineers of the land, masters of wind and silence. Their knowledge is not brute force, it's calculus, lived and passed on in footsteps and whispers. They gather before the fire, laying out their tools, spears tipped with flaked stone, so fine it can slice a tendon in a single breath. Atlatls, carved from wood and bone, that transform the arm into a lever of incredible force. The physics is implicit. The throw must arc at just the right angle. The shaft must flex, then whip forward with a snap of the wrist. They do not speak of torque or trajectory, but they feel it in their shoulders, in the way the fingers grip the sinew bindings. The tools themselves tell a deeper story. Microliths, tiny stone blades, no longer than a fingernail, are set into grooves on wood or bone. They form modular edges, serrated spears, barbed harpoons, knives with replaceable teeth. When one breaks, it's not disaster, it's design. You swap it out, you adapt. This isn't a world of improvisation, it's a world of systems. A child watches as the spear is assembled. Soon he knows the order already. He's seen it dozens of times. But today, he's handed a piece, not to play with, but to shape. The flint resists. It cuts when held wrong, but he doesn't flinch. Mistake is part of the apprenticeship. The knowledge isn't hidden, it's shared piece by piece until it becomes reflex. And when the hunt begins, it moves like choreography. Scouts move first, tracking the herd by signs only they can read. A fresh mark on bark, a disturbed patch of grass, droppings still warm. Then comes positioning, flankers circling wide, drivers preparing to guide the animal toward a kill zone. The lead hunter raises 2 fingers. They freeze, then they move, silent, swift, exact. A spear is thrown, not in desperation, but with exquisite control. The target falls, not always. Often it escapes. That's the rhythm. No waste, no fury, just the turning of the page. If the kill succeeds, it feeds the group. If not, the plants and roots will carry the day. Meat is triumph, but not dependence. And here's the secret modern minds resist. These people, thus primitives, worked less than we do. Their survival was demanding, yes, but not unrelenting. The hunt might take hours, the gathering perhaps a half day. But then came something we have forgotten how to name. Life. The afternoon returns to the camp like a soft exhale. The fire is fed, but not frantic. Meat is smoked, roots ground, hides cleaned. But it is not endless, not hurried. And once the work is done, just 4, maybe 5 hours of it, comes a fullness we struggle to find in our own world. They rest, not from laziness, but because they've learned when enough is enough. The sun is high, and someone stretches out under the branches, eyes half closed. Another weaves quietly, humming. A few practice making new points, reshaping damaged flints. 2 young ones mimic an antelope's gait, turning the hunt into game. No one yells, no one schedules. Rest is not stolen, it is built into the rhythm. There is no badge for productivity, no one is measuring output. Value comes from presence. You're not expected to be busy, you're expected to belong. The pressure to produce gives way to the need to participate, to eat, to sing, to sit in silence and listen to wind. Repairs are done in the warmth of conversation. A tear in a pouch is sown while someone tells a story about the river fish with glowing eyes. A cracked pot is patched while a child lays in the shade, fingering the patterns of seeds on a woven mat. Movement and stillness are not opposites, they are complements. Then the music returns. A drum, its beats low and steady. A stick rhythm tapped on stone. No one performs, they participate. A voice joins, not singing for applause but for balance. Others hum, someone dances, someone watches, and all of it becomes a ceremony, not formal, not marked by ritual objects, but felt in the joints, in the laugh that bursts too early, in the sway of a body that doesn't need an audience. Evening arrives not with a jolt, but a leaning inward. Shadows lengthen. The fire breathes again. Food is passed, not plated, shared without measure. No one counts bites. No one eats alone. And when the stars return, when the stories rise again from ember and tongue, you understand something modern life forgets. They did not survive by working endlessly. They thrived by knowing when to stop, when to listen, when to sit close and simply be. The world, for them, was not a thing to conquer. It was a rhythm to live by, and they lived it well. By the time the stars settle into their ancient grooves above the camp, the work of hands has already begun again, not out of necessity, but out of rhythm. A young woman sits near the hearth, a piece of antler cradled in her lap. With a thin shard of flint, she begins to carve, not randomly, but with direction and repetition, smoothing, shaping, pausing, adjusting. The piece she's working on will become the hook of a harpoon. The shape must be exact, the angles precise. She doesn't need blueprints. She doesn't need numbers. Her fingers already know. Her grandfather sits nearby, repairing the haft of a spear. The split in the wood must be sealed tight. The sinew must dry under tension. The binding must curve at just the right point to give strength without snapping. He doesn't explain. He works. And the child beside him, eyes wide in the firelight, absorbs every movement. That's the classroom here. That's the textbook. The hands, the repetition, the patience. You watch them, and something shifts inside you, because you realize these people, these so-called primitives, are anything but simple. Their tools are not crude. They are elegant, modular, engineered for precision and adaptability. They make composite weapons from bone, flint, wood, sinew, each part doing exactly what it must: replaceable, repairable, balanced. They've invented systems of design that modern engineers would call efficient, ergonomic, sustainable, and they've done it without drawing a single line. Their intelligence is not abstracted from life, it is life. When they shape stone, they're not guessing. They're engaging in physics. They understand fracture mechanics, not through formulas, but through years of trial and reflection. They strike a core in just the right way to release a flake that curves, slices, and fits into a shaft. Each motion is geometry, each strike a theorem, proven not in chalk, but in blood and breath and survival. Their minds are not our ancestors, they are our equals. Their brains, the same size as ours, sometimes even larger in volume, were sculpted not by convenience, but by necessity. They memorized the call of every bird, the taste of every root in every season, the shape of stars in different skies. They stored thousands of details, not on servers, not in folders, but in scar tissue, in gut instinct, in the layered archives of daily life. An elder shows a girl how to read weather in the pattern of clouds. He doesn't say cumulonimbus. He lifts his chin, narrows his eyes, and mutters a phrase that means the water walks early. She repeats it, looks to the sky, and nods. That knowledge will settle into her the way stones settle into a riverbed. Slow, steady, permanent. They navigate without maps. They track without instruments. They calculate distance by muscle, not measurement. They know when to move camp, not because of a calendar, but because the wind tastes different or the frogs have gone silent. Their world isn't read through glass. It's touched, tasted, heard, and because of that, it is known more deeply. Their medicine is no less remarkable. A woman stirs a paste made of crushed leaves and moss. She applies it to a scrape on her son's leg. He winces, but trusts. The mixture is antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, soothing. She knows this not because she ran experiments, but because the knowledge was passed to her through story, demonstration, observation. Perhaps she watched her own mother tend to her siblings this way. Perhaps she felt the burn of the wrong leaf once and learned not to make that mistake again. Knowledge here doesn't sit in categories, it flows. The same person who carves beads from ivory might also know how to set a broken bone, track an elk, and interpret the way tree bark curls when the weather shifts. There are no specialists because no one can afford to know only one thing. Everyone is a generalist, but not in the modern sense of being a little good at everything. Here, generalism means mastery across disciplines because survival demands it. Their art is not ornamental, it is layered with meaning. A piece of ochre is etched with deliberate cross-hatched lines. We don't know exactly what it meant, but we know it meant something because the marks are too precise, too repeated across regions to be random. They are patterns, ideas, memory coded into material. It is symbolic thought without alphabet. It is abstraction you can hold in your hand. And when they dance, when they move in circles under the stars, limbs painted with ash and ochre, flutes piercing the dark, you see intelligence in motion. You see rhythm used not just for joy, but for cohesion, for memory, for inducing trance and insight. The beat is not a soundtrack, it's a language. It helps tell stories that words cannot contain. Their tools are not temporary fixes. They are the results of hundreds of generations learning from mistakes. A broken blade teaches as much as a perfect one. A failed hunt offers more than a lucky throw. These people don't fear failure. They refine through it. And in that cycle of attempt and adjustment, their knowledge deepens, not into abstraction, but into touch, sound, weight, and intuition. There is no word for engineer in their tongue, but they are engineers of bone, of water, of silence. They carve spoons that fit the curve of a hand. They make beads so small and uniform they must have taken days to perfect. They build shelters that breathe with the wind and then vanish with the season. And they do it all without hierarchy, without bureaucracy, without debt. Their minds are not backward. They are not unfinished versions of us. They are us, stripped of distraction, sharpened by environment, immersed in experience. Their wisdom is not outdated, it is embedded. It is practical, relational, and endlessly adaptive. They teach with their hands. They remember with their skin. They calculate through repetition. They pass on everything that matters, not with textbooks, but with rhythm, with ritual, with quiet correction beside the fire. And maybe the strangest thing of all, none of this feels like a burden to them, because when knowledge is lived, when memory is muscle, when intelligence moves like breath, it doesn't feel like something you carry. It feels like something you are. The moon has shifted again, and with it, the wind. The reeds near the water bend in the opposite direction now, and the insects sing a different pattern at dusk. The people in the camp don't need to check a calendar. They know what this means. It's time to move. There is no mourning for what's left behind, only a calm recognition. The shelters, though functional, were never built to last. They were built to respond. Saplings, once bent into graceful domes, now dry and crack. Hides grow stiff. The smell of the earth changes. The land has spoken, and the people listen. The true home was never the structure. It was the pattern, the memory of how to build, how to live, and how to move. The camp dismantles itself with quiet efficiency. Stones once arranged in a hearth are scattered. Hides are rolled and bundled. Bones, tools, baskets, gathered, packed, lifted. What stays behind, ashes, shallow post holes, impressions in the soil, will fade with the wind and rain. But for those who return seasons later, the land will remember. The ground will show where warmth once was. A child, now grown, will say, "Here, this is where we slept." In colder lands, where trees are scarce and the horizon feels endless, the structures take a different form. Mammoth bones form the walls, skulls stacked, ribs lashed with sinew, hides stretched taut over the frame. These are not grotesque monuments. They are elegant shelters, engineered from necessity. A curved tusk becomes a roof beam, a skull, a windbreak. Nothing is wasted. Every piece fits. These shelters rise like sculptures, then vanish when the thaw comes. Further south, homes are dug into the earth, partially subterranean, shaped from soft soil and lined with stones. They are cool in summer, warm in winter. They leave barely a trace once abandoned, yet their design is consistent across generations. Entryways angled away from wind, sleeping areas arranged in a circle, hearth in the center. It is not permanence that gives structure. It is repetition. It is memory encoded in design. No one here locks a door. There are no doors to lock. Protection is not found in barriers, but in closeness, in knowing who sleeps beside you and who will hear if something stirs in the night. The danger is not eliminated, but it is shared, and in that sharing it softens. The home is not an object, it is an event, a thing that happens when people gather, when fire is lit, when stories are told. It is not built to impress or to endure. It is built to hold, to shelter breath, laughter, sleep. And when the people move, the home remains in memory, ready to be raised again wherever it is needed. A child lingers at the edge of the clearing, watching the final embers cool. He does not cry. He is not leaving his house. He is following his people, and wherever they go, the pattern will follow. By midday, the group is on the move. The children are not told to hurry. They move at their own pace, some walking, some carried, some trailing behind, eyes wide. One girl drags a stick through the dirt, creating swirls and loops, pausing to add a stone here, a leaf there. No one stops her. She's not playing. She's practicing. There are no schools here, no bells to mark time, no walls to divide knowledge by subject. Yet the learning is constant, present in every gesture, every mistake, every silence. Children are not separated from the world. They are woven into it. A boy sits beside his uncle, watching him split a piece of flint. He mimics the motion, holds the stone wrong, draws blood. His uncle does not scold. He lets him try again. Pain is not punishment here. It is calibration. Later, the same boy trails a group of gatherers, pointing to plants, naming them aloud. His mother nods when he gets it right. She corrects with a glance when he doesn't. The lesson is unspoken but unmistakable. Attention is rewarded with understanding, and understanding with trust. A toddler toddles too close to the fire. An older child pulls him back, not harshly, but gently, with a hum that means danger. The little one giggles, unaware, but the older child has learned and now teaches. There is no formal curriculum, but the knowledge passed here is vast. Children learn how to spot animal tracks, how to tell when a storm is coming, how to pluck the first sprouting greens without damaging the root. They learn that the moon tells stories and that the stars can guide you home if you listen long enough. They learn not by being filled with facts, but by being immersed in meaning. Every adult is a mentor. Every moment is a lesson. Every mistake is a doorway. And when the sun lowers and the fire returns, the children gather once more, not to be taught, but to belong. The stories told are the same as yesterday, but not the same. The teller pauses at a new moment. A new metaphor is added. A new gesture draws laughter. A new child repeats the final line. In this world, childhood is not a waiting room for adulthood. It is part of the journey with its own contributions, its own wisdom. The little ones are not distractions. They are reflections. They show how well the group remembers, because every child is a mirror of how knowledge has been passed. And perhaps that is the truest legacy of a people without writing. Not that they lacked books, but that they never needed them, because everything that mattered was stored in the rhythm of work, in the cadence of stories, and in the wide, open eyes of a child who was never told to sit still and listen, but simply invited to live. The path winds along the edge of a stream, its banks swollen with last night's rain. The air still smells of lightning, wet stone, bruised bark, disturbed moss. A woman stoops near the roots of an alder tree. She does not hesitate. She reaches with purpose, brushes aside leaves, and plucks a mushroom the color of ash. One by one, she adds them to her basket, but not all. Some she leaves, untouched, not because she doesn't see them, but because she knows. Those will grow bitter by dusk. Those are the ones that draw illness unless boiled twice. Those are for later, for someone else, or for the soil. This isn't harvesting, it's conversation. The land is not a thing to be used, it is a presence to be listened to. The people do not take what they want, they take what is offered, and in return, they offer care, letting seeds fall, avoiding overgrazed groves, burning small patches to help plants grow back stronger next spring. The world here is not enemy, not property, not scenery. It is kin. Children trail behind the gatherers, reciting names out loud, their voices rising like birdsong. This one curls before the frost. That one stings unless crushed. This one smells sweet, but hides a bitter heart. These aren't just facts. They are stories, each plant a character with habits, moods, and secrets. The girl who learns them is not memorizing. She is entering into a relationship. Further off, a man stands still, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He isn't resting, he's watching. The wind shifts, a flock of birds bursts from the grass. He smiles, kneels, presses 2 fingers into the soil, damp but not soaked. The deer will pass here soon, following the scent of soaked roots. No one taught him this in a formal way. He watched. He remembered. He felt the ground change under his feet season after season. His knowledge is not theoretical. It is intimate. The people do not chart the ecosystem. They participate in it. They don't dominate the terrain. They belong to it. The rivers have songs. The rocks have names. The places where certain berries grow are marked in memory, not maps. They move through the world not as owners, but as guests who know the host well and tread softly out of respect. Even fire, so often feared as destructive, is used with precision and care. Small burns clear the undergrowth, encouraging new shoots, drawing animals, refreshing the land. This is not accidental. It is intentional, passed down through generations, not in diagrams, but in story, in demonstration, in trust. And so the people move with the seasons, not against them. They adapt, not because they are weak, but because they understand that strength does not lie in resisting the world. It lies in listening to it. There are no monuments to mark their passing, no fences, no ruins, no stone walls to declare mine. But their presence is everywhere, in the health of the plants, in the path of the animals, in the quiet patterns left behind like footprints in ash. At the end of the day, when the sky purples and the fire returns, a man picks up a flute made of bone. The holes are spaced perfectly, the surface smoothed with oil and time. He plays not for an audience, but for the night. The melody is familiar. It belongs here in this moment with these stars. The children curl close. The elders lean back. The flames flicker higher, throwing shadows that dance across faces painted with soot and time. A woman tells a story about a cave where dreams are stored in stone. Another adds a line about a deer who taught a man to walk silently. The stories pile like embers, layered, glowing, infinite. You look around this circle and realize they were never what we thought they were. Not brutes, not shadows of who we'd become. They were sculptors of survival, poets of the practical, engineers of the ephemeral. They made flutes with symmetry and purpose. They carved beads with mathematical patience. They tracked lunar cycles and marked solstices with ochre and stone. They buried their children with care. They dressed their dead in red clay and ivory. They mourned not with monuments, but with memory. Their homes left little trace, but their hands touched every corner of the earth with quiet wisdom. And though we call them prehistoric, they were not before history. They were its keepers, not with ink, but with fire, not in volumes, but in voice. Their knowledge lived not on shelves, but in the breath of a story told 1,000 times and never the same way twice. As the fire fades and the stars blink open, someone adds a final log. Sparks rise. The circle leans inward. The last words of the story hang in the smoke. You close your eyes, and for a moment you understand. These people were not the beginning of something crude. They were the peak of something whole. A moment when memory, rhythm, and survival live not in separate compartments, but in a single flame. And though the world has changed, though walls have risen, and the sky is often blocked by concrete and noise, something remains. The ember, buried in ash, waiting. A memory not lost, only sleeping.